world is not perfect. It never will be.
I agree. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
No, I mean we have to keep trying, but this is the way it is. And again, coming back to Sushant, I mean it's a big tragedy, and a young man, he would have become a very big star. I mean, he was at the cusp. I think Chichore, the last film, did nearby. I'm not a business analyst, but close to 200 crores or 200 crores, and his Dhoni did very well. His Kai Poche did very well. You know, so I mean, was a really bright star, on the firmament, and I think that is why a lot of people find it very. I mean, it creates such an impact, and then I think if that impact leads to some soul searching, some change, some rethinking about the medium and the way it's run, I think good. But it should not become, just a personal witch hunt for, there is no point in that.
Excellent. So the one question that I've been dying to ask you this whole time is that you launched Chitrangda Singh, who happens to be one of my favorite actresses, and you have worked with her in a few other films. How is it working with her? And, she obviously loves working with you as well. So how is it working with her?
She's a very good actor. Very, very good actor when she wants to be. And sometimes, if I ever have a part for her, I will go to her. I mean, when we first met and I worked with her in Hazaron, the first 2 days I was talking to her like a child artist. By the end of it, I was treating her like I would talk to Irfan Khan. That's how quickly she evolved. So for me, she was Hazaron or some of the films that I've made are unthinkable without her. So as long as when I wrote something, for example, there's no part for her in Serious Men, right? She's not there. Or there's no part for her in Das Day or the other films that I've made. But whenever there is no question that I will not talk to her, and then it's also up to her. But I really enjoy working with her. She's very, she's unique in terms of, she has to do, and she's also blessed because she has to do very little. It's very economical, very, very nuanced. And so if you have to, the parts that she should get or whatever, if she works with scripts that are very finely written, and then she is an actor that can very easily sort of create a certain kind of magic in a certain kind of film. There's something that in her face, there's something in her whole grace, the way her whole presence is. And in those 3 films that I've worked with her on, they are quite unimaginable without her.
That's what I thought. So now at this point, I'm going to open the floor to our filmmakers that we have in the group. We have, and I'm going to introduce a few. There's Nitin Adsul. Nitin has actually made a film called Parthu. We've got Sri Mirajkar, and not to forget, we have Sunita Mishra ji. We also have Haider Bilgrami, and we have Priya Samant. Priya is an impact advisor. So
is Alia there? Is Haider meaning Alia?
No, it's Haider Bilgrami.
I know, I used to know Bilgrami. I used to have a friend called Madhoj Bilgrami. My elder brother, almost senior, was very kind to me, and his son was earlier. Anyway, and I believe he'd migrated to America. So,
Yeah, I will ask Haider on the side if he's related. But I'm going to allow Nitin to ask his question first. Go ahead, Nitin.
Yeah, so thank you, Sudhirji, for the insights about the, as he mentioned, I made a film, a regional film called Partu, and the theatrical issues we faced where Bollywood movies were taking more theaters. But my question more is about the revenues, how officially those revenues are available for public, because I'm now raising fund for my next film, and the naturally question comes from the investors potentially that, how would you make sure that this is the revenue that you want to get it, because we were always dependent on distributors to give us a number, but if it's available like public records or a more regulated way, do you see that happening because of this change that happening in industry? I mean, is it something that you can give some insights?
I'm not the best person to talk about business, but yeah, today it's quite open. I mean, the multiplex chains, those figures are available for all to see. I mean, you can see your theater-wise, seat-wise collection, all India, wherever there's multiplex chains. Now there are some, for instance, single theaters, single screen theaters, which in some places where you might not get the. So I mean, you have to have a person, a good business advisor with you who knows how to sell it, in a way where you will be more aware. Okay. So I mean, if, for example, in places where you will not get reports in that more methodical way,
right,
or more transparent a way, then maybe you should sell those places outright.
Okay.
Right. Take a kind of and in the rest of the country. But if you sell a film, mostly an independent, non-mainstream sort of film is released mostly in multiplexes.
Right.
And the multiplexes today, you will get all the figures. I mean, for example, the PVR chain, you will get a very transparent view of look at your own business. So that's not a problem. And then whatever your sale is let's say if the theatrical forms 50% of your recovery, and there is today the OTT platform, the theater, all that. So, I mean, you have to work out the strategy and your budget in those ways.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Sri, do you have a question?
Yes. So, Sudhirji, namaskar. I'm absolutely in awe of everything that you have said and all the nuggets that you're sharing with us. I have ventured into films more because of people like Sunita, and she has made films over here. I acted in a couple of hers, and of course because of Nitin also, because I acted in a film with him. And so my question to you is, again, there's so many things that come to mind, so many different questions. एक घंटे में सब कवर करना बहुत मुश्किल होगा, लेकिन so for Hazaron Khwahishein, you had said something, you hit on something that it has to be a personal experience. It has to be something that, there's events going on all around us. And how do you personalize it? How do you take that and your personal experience, how do you bring that in? So obviously this was very political and it was a very daring film, I thought, Hazaron, to have done it at that time with emergency and tell a story so beautifully. How much of that was personal to you in terms of the Naxal movement, and how influenced were you by that?
No, but you can't experience personally everything. But I mean, if you take a subject matter like that, I mean, I say it in the beginning of the film that this is about my imaginary elder brothers, and not that I had any, but the imaginary elder brothers and sisters that I had. It's about a generation before mine, right? So, but you personalize it by your own view, by your. So let's say somebody would ask me in Hazaron, which person are you? Are you the Naxal or are you the fixer? Right. So I would say I'm Geeta. I'm neither a fixer nor am I an Naxal. I'm more a person who, kind of doesn't think that the world should change because I wished it to, but that I'm holding on to some value systems that I believe in, right? So, which is what Geeta is at the end of the film, right? She's neither an Naxal, she's neither a fixer, right? But I mean, how do I understand the Naxal, and how do I understand, and how, because I mean, you have those aspects inside you, and you have seen other kinds of radicals, a kind of extremism. So, I mean, it's partly the reality and the research, and then you understand the person through some other aspect of yourself or through your own personal experiences, right? So, I mean, we have, if you live openly in the world and allow people to influence you and you interact with people, then you will, the wider your experience is, the more you will, be able to. But I personalized it through Geeta. I went into the film from always looking at the ebb and flow of life through Geeta. And Hazaron is actually about life and how it cannot be, encapsulated in an ideology, that it escapes. So the fixer becomes somebody else and becomes more braver at times than the radical. But what can the radical do except at that moment move away and try and find himself? So, I mean, these are, you have to find ways in order to personalize. I mean, there's a, you have to put yourself, in those situations, and you have to, there are similar situations which they become, why does, say, Hazaron last? I mean, there's not a single week that passes when I'm not told by some new person that they love the film, right? So why does, when it was first seen, first few shows of Hazaron in a private thing, I remember Shekhar Kapoor sitting and crying at the end. And then he said, thank you for the film because it's about his generation. And he said, thank you for the film, but will the young get it? But since then, I've lost count of the number of young people who have loved the film. Right? So it works because it becomes like a metaphor. No, it becomes like Hazaron is about being young and then rebelling against the world that has been handed over to you by your father and parents. So Hazaron is also about children and parents. It's about Shiny's relationship with his father. It's about KK's relationship with his father. Geeta seems to have the most equal kind of relationships, right? And so it's about disagreeing with the notion of the world that has been handed over to you, right? So every generation does that, no, in different ways. Not exactly the same. So a good film then escapes the time period in which it is set. It's not about that exact, the time, the period in which it is set becomes a metaphor. Like, for instance, Poolan Devi is about a woman in those circumstances who rebels and wants to change the circumstance or the screenplay of the life that she's been handed over to her. Right? It's not only about a dacoit. That's why it really, it's about rebelling. It's about not accepting. It's about a woman reacting to a kind of male brutality. So it becomes a metaphor for all women in one sense. It's not just about Poolan. It's about what is done to women and the experience of being a woman in those extreme circumstances also. So, yeah, I mean, you have to find ways of then how does Shekhar Kapoor then personalize that experience? You have checked with him, but he's done it brilliantly.
Thank you so much for that. We are almost close to an hour, so I'm going to take the last few questions. I think Sunita Mishra ji, did you have a question?
Yes, Uday was going to ask a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. I was just curious. You had mentioned earlier that you like to, or you prefer, I guess, not to know where an idea is going to go as you're developing it. It's more exciting for you. I've heard a lot of sort of reasons as to what draws people to different ideas, whether it's like the character, like the world, they know how it ends. So my question was really if you have a sort of through line that you kind of have come to an understanding to of what draws you to an idea, and whether that's kind of changed over time for you.
No, I mean, it's changed over time in a sense that, you know, when I see my first film and I see this angry young boy that had made it, you know, I kind of vaguely recognize the person who's made it, you know, I mean, and today I'm not that didactic and not that extreme in my, you know, so I think from say, if you see Ye Wo Manzil To Nahi and then you see Hazaron, it has a gentler, you know, you know, in the end, the Vikram Malhotra character puts his head on the Geeta character's shoulder and, you know, Bavraman plays. You know, so it's about acceptance and, you know, coming together in a kind of a gentler end. You know, I mean, it's kind of half sad, half, whereas, say, let's say, Ye Wo Manzil To Nahi was, you know, like a condemnation of the world. You know, in the end, the Pankaj Kapoor character was shot. You know, so I mean, it's you change, but I think somewhere also you remain the same. That what draws you towards things is those that are kind of not what I mean. What draws me are characters who sort of who kind of say no. Like you see Chameli, then Chameli is about a prostitute who says no. I mean, a lot of people don't see it that way because they like the beauty of the film and whatever. But at the end of it, she says that, I mean, tells a pimp that I'm not going to this client. I have a right to say no. So, I mean, what drives me towards is those people who kind of are a bit, you know, in a sense, in dissonance with what has been handed to them, kind of. So I think that seems to be some kind of thing that works.
You know, the way I see Sudhir's films is that, and he might tell me, he always says no to what I perceive as his films, but his films are mostly about frail people, not about absolutism, right? I mean, you explore your characters as they themselves evolve, and that's your central theme. All your
And
characters.
they evolve and they don't know. And I don't believe heroism is something permanent, or you can find, you know, I mean, there are heroes at moments in life, you know, and you know, anybody can discover that in themselves. And you know, life is a little bit surprising, and it's about softer people in a sense, and people who are not that, you know, and then they find some courage somewhere sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a gray scale, you know, to life. That's why I like the heading of the article, one article about me, said the anatomy of grays.
Oh, so I thought you said anatomy of grace. It's anatomy of grays.
Grays.
Okay. Grayscale.
Mm.
So I mean, I think it's on a gray scale, you know, life.
Excellent. Excellent. That is lovely. So, I mean, I'm just going to take one last question. Can you I think it was, who had a question? I believe Priya had a question.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask quickly. So, what is the path moving forward for people like us who live in the United States? And, there's a big group of artists, which actually Sonny has founded that group, and we all are very enthusiastic and, very passionate about film, acting, and, all other departments. So, what is, while the Bollywood is, I mean, not Bollywood, I would say the cinema is now opening up and there's a lot of changes that are going to be happen, which we hope are going to be positive. What is the path going forward for people like us? Because as Sunny said, I am actually, I founded the title Impact Advisor, which is given in the films. And one of my films actually got listed for Oscars this year, but nobody knows about it, right? Because I'm an outsider. So what is the path moving forward for people like us?
I think it's interesting times, I mean, because, today with the new technology and digital technology, it's anybody could make cinema has become really accessible. You could be, not that you don't hone your craft. I mean, there is a certain logic and a certain, when it was difficult to make a film, you worked a lot on your craft. When it's too easy, sometimes you think just even the act of making a film is easy. It's not. You should read a letter that Martin Scorsese has written to his daughter. It's on the net. He's written a letter about to his daughter. I think her name is Francisca. I'm not sure. But otherwise, I think it's very easy to make a film. You have great cameras which are very cheap, and you can edit at home, and editing equipment and sound equipment and everything is now there. So I think you should continue making. I mean, somebody who wants to make, you should just get up and make films. Put it here, put it on the net, good, and you'll find you'll find a buyer, a platform, a festival, something that will trigger this change in your career. I think I think from the time when we entered cinema, and then you could make a film, and everything was so expensive, and you have to have a 16mm camera at least in a Bolex or whatever, and then shoot and edit in a certain way, and then where would you show the film? When we started out in the 80s, or people started out in 60s or 70s. I mean, those were tougher times. These are much better times for younger people and people who are, and you could be anywhere now. You could be in New Jersey or you could be in Jamshedpur. I think it's a very interesting time, and I could access your film. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to make a film. My Serious Men on the 2nd of October this year will come on Netflix. You'll see it. It's anywhere in the world anybody will be able to access it. So I think it's very interesting times in some ways. And I think the way forward is not to get trapped by wanting to get accepted by a certain group of people. You have to create your own group. If a certain power structure doesn't accept you, you create your own structure. And because you living in America, I mean, there's issues there, and that's where you live, and that's where your stories can emanate from. Or those stories can emanate from your home country where you were from. Where anything's possible. And whatever triggers you, I mean, I'm not here to tell you what to make, but just make it. Send it to festivals, send it to places. There are many ways now.
Absolutely. Well, It's been a lovely 1 hour, sir. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us. I mean, I still have a ton of questions, but I realize that it's already an hour and you committed to an hour for us. So I really want to thank everybody for coming to this call. And I want to thank you, Sudhir Mishra ji, for taking out the time out of your busy schedule and giving us this 1 hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Good night.
Isha is also saying bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
With
I put the camera on
with
her.
my unmade up face and my hair.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sonny.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Sunita ji.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.